Hiya once again, Tim with Tim's Computer Repair. In this video, I am going to be discussing all of the basic tools that you need to run a computer, laptop, or PC repair shop. I have accumulated a number of important tools through the 20 plus years that I've been running my repair shop, and I figured I would share with everyone if you're interested in starting a repair shop or you're just curious about what kind of tools that you may need. And I mean the basic tools now. The stuff that I discuss here are good stuff that you can have to start off with, to kind of get you off the ground. Some of the things I show you is some things that I've accumulated over time. I thought it might be a good idea to make it an informative video for anybody who is trying to get into the PC, computer, laptop repair, custom built computers, things like that. I'm going to start off with some of the most important tools, and it won't be this tumbler here. It's not needed, but it is nice to have. You need a very good tech screwdriver kit, basically. This particular kit from iFixit. By the way, all of the tools that I show in this video are not a sponsor. They're not sponsoring this video. Every one of these tools I purchased on my own for my personal use in my repair shop. So there's no sponsorship here whatsoever. Okay, let's get that out of the way. But this is an iFixit basic computer laptop repair screwdriver set here. And you know, if you look, it's got lots of different assortments of screw heads. It's got your magnetic screwdriver there, really good quality tips from your Phillips head to your hex head, and various other different types of bits. A lot of this too will work on Macs, so you have to keep that in mind if you're going to be doing computer repair. Well, there are Macs that will come into your shop and you'll have to work on, and they use proprietary screws. Of course, Apple does. So this will pretty much get you through almost any basic repair of laptops, either whether it be PCs or Macs. It's got some extension rods here, very good, very quality tips. Listen, you don't have to use iFixit. There are other ones you can find on Amazon, but the real thing you got to be careful of is some of these tips can be made of poor quality, so they can start grinding away at the tip, degrading them. So you kind of get what you pay for when it comes to these. But that's a good kit to start off with, in my opinion. We've got your basic screwdrivers here. I mean basic stuff. Flathead, Phillips head. This is used to take off and remove or tighten up certain screws. They're hex screws, and also this is really good for removing or tightening up standoffs on desktop cases. Got a smaller Phillips head there. Then you got this nice long one. Now you'd wonder why you would need that, but this is really great for getting down in areas that have big air coolers like desktops, and they have screws down between the fins that you have to get a long screwdriver down into. Very good for that. Very good if you have tight spots that only this screwdriver can reach, because with these, if you have something apart or something blocking your way, or you have a small space to get into, these aren't quite long enough. A nice extra long Phillips head screwdriver I found comes in handy greatly. We have a basic eyeglass kit here. Very small flathead screwdrivers. I mean, look at this little guy. I mean, that is but believe it or not, I have used that before. I have used it before. I've needed it. I'm glad I had it. It has its uses. These are Phillips. So this is a tech kit for eyeglass repair, but I've found that it works very well in laptop repair also. Tweezers, a very good pair of tweezers. You'll be shocked at how many times that you would need tweezers to get down into some small and pick up small objects that are in some really tight places. It's all sorts of uses. If you start working on computers and laptops, you will soon understand why that a pair of tweezers is a must-have. All right, and then for the advanced user, I've gone with an electric screwdriver here. This screwdriver is very handy for removing screws without having to use your fingers. If you have a lot of laptops that you have to get through, as I do sometimes, I mean, this guy really comes in handy. It even has an LED light on it. Look at there. Very, very handy. It's rechargeable. It charges with USB Type-C. I have done a review of this particular one, and I will link you to that. Also, I did have the Wow Stick, which failed on me, believe it or not. This guy here has done me great. All of these items that I am showing in this video will be linked down below this video in the chat. So feel free to go down there, have a look. If you feel like you want to purchase some things from my store there, please feel free. It would support me. I'd appreciate it. This is a really good investment here. Not a must-have starting off, but I figured I would show it. It also comes with these tips that are it's pretty cool. They're enclosed in a tube, easy to get to. Comes with all sorts of different types of tips. So you see their sizes there. So there's the screwdrivers basically that I use for computer laptop repair. Okay, moving on. Pry tools. The one basic tool that every PC tech should have is called a spudger. This one's kind of mangled, but it's been used a lot. But these spudgers are a must-have for a PC tech, especially when it comes to hardware. One end is pointy, which comes in handy for digging out wires that are going in their channels. The other side, kind of a flat surface there, can use as a pry tool to separate the cases on laptops. You have these guys, which are quite common. I know everyone has seen these. These are also good. They're plastic, and it's for a reason. It keeps from scratching the surfaces of laptops or mangling up where you use to pry on a laptop. Plastic's always good for that. These work well in some cases, especially some cases that are really tough to pry open, as opposed to the spudger, which is a little bit more of a flimsy type of thing. But sometimes these work well. I've used these before. They almost look like a guitar pick. These work well. Have several of them, so you can get one end in while open. While it's cracked open, you can use the other one to move around the case. These work well together if you use quite a few of them. They come in handy. This is just regular, something that iFixit, not a sponsor, has that you can use to wedge apart laptops also. It's like a card. You can find these online of any variety, of any brand. And me, when I started off, look guys, I just used my old credit cards, and I just cut them up into small slivers, and got quite a few of them in here. You can see there, and I tell you, I mean, that's really, I mean, if you're on a budget and you're just starting off, you don't have to purchase all these. You can get old credit cards and an old guitar pick. That's how I started. And credit cards work quite well, But I tell you, what I found is, over all these years, this is the tool that I use the most. This is flimsy, it's a metal. You use it in the right situation and be careful with it. This has been, and this is called an iSesame. This is a particular brand. You don't have to use iSesame, not a sponsor. There's other tools like this, exactly like this, you can find online that do just fine. As it turns out, I found this quite handy, and I actually use this tool more than any of these whenever I work on laptops. Okay, in the computer repair industry, this is what's known as a toaster. You can fit down in these slots either a 2.5 inch or 3.5 inch SATA drive. They go right down into these slots. They plug right in. And they have a USB plug on the end that you plug into your bench computer, and you can then pull data off of these drives. If you need to, you can clone these drives one to the other if you want to. It just makes a much easier way of accessing data off multiple drives, copying data off drives. It's a must-have for a computer repair technician. And you'll find yourself in need of one pretty darn quickly, but they're very, very convenient. I would highly recommend one of these to be one of your original first purchases. It'll come in handy. So things are really kind of moving away from drives actually. So another thing you want to consider having are these guys right here. These are M.2 SSD drives that convert to, you can take an M.2, plug it right into there, clamp it down, plug that into your bench computer, your USB, and then you can access all of the data that way. Since things are moving away from these drives, there's many more computers nowadays coming with these small M.2s. These are also a must-have. And why do I have two? Well, let me tell you. Sometimes I've got to clone one to the other. So I got to get the old smaller M.2 drive and I got to put the new larger M.2 drive on here and then clone it over. So I have to have two to do that. But definitely two must-haves, these items right here. Okay, these are universal power adapters. This is also a must-have if you're going to be a computer repair tech. These are needed for laptops that come into your shop that are having power issues. The very first thing you want to check with power issues is to make sure it's getting proper power. This is how you do it. These guys come with different tips for different varieties of different brands of computers. You gotta have this to properly check for proper power to these laptops. This one here is a USB-C type power adapter, which is what many computers now are starting to ship with. And this is the other one here that uses these tips. You can use whatever tip you like, whatever fits the laptop is what you want to use. This is a very interesting one here. This one you can actually control the voltage. 19 volts are usually, what all laptops require. However, there's other electronic devices that do come through my shop that require less voltage, and in some cases I've had some electronic devices come through my shop that requires more voltage. Here you can adjust to whatever voltage you want, up to 24 volts. I will say with all of this, there are some cheap ones out there. You want to make sure that the one that you get has at least 65 watts. So, but this is definitely a must-have, these universal power adapters for your laptops. Okay, some other things you need to have as a technician in a repair shop are parts to test with. Definitely important to have parts to test with, and that's where things can become a little complicated. These are the ones that I accumulated over the years. A good thing about AMD boards is they've been stuck on their AM4 socket for years. AM5 just came out at the time of this video. It's not that old, but I already have AM5 processors and computers that come through my shop that I have to troubleshoot. And the only way you can troubleshoot computers that don't work, especially gaming desktops or desktops themselves, is having known good parts to work with. So what I do is I go out and I shop the least expensive board I can find, but still a quality name brand. But still, it is on the lowest of the low end, because all I need it for is testing. Here I have my AM5 board, and under this heatsink I have mounted a Ryzen 7000 series processor. I can mix and match as I want to. I can use that Ryzen 7 processor to test another motherboard, or I can use this motherboard to test a Ryzen 7000 series chip, or basically an AM5 chip. This is just one stick of DDR5 memory. This is the new DDR5 at the time of this video. All I need is one stick. One known good stick is all I need. So, that's AM5. Then you move around to, let's go, the next, batch down with AMD is the AM4. This has been used a lot in my shop because of all the AM4 has been around for all these years. So this has been my go-to Ryzen 3 AM4 chip. So I can do like I said with the AM5. I can either take that chip, put it in another motherboard and test it, or I can take the chip out of the broken computer or the broken PC that I'm working on, and I can test it on this motherboard. That's the only way you're going to be able to determine or know for a fact that any given part on a computer is bad on a desktop computer. So then we're moving along to the Intel side of things. I've got an 1151 cheap motherboard right there. I can test with that. We move right along. Then I've got 10th gen to test with. Just fine there. And then we have a 12th gen motherboard here that we can test with. And, you know, of course, I'll have the 11th gen processor that I can test with. I've got a 10th gen processor that I can test with. So all these are important to have. Another thing that's important to have, this is another motherboard here that I've had out of my old case when I upgraded my own. This is another test motherboard and another known good processor that I have here. You know, just for giggles, instead of getting rid of them, I hold on to them and use them for testing. Now, I know not everybody can run out and purchase all of this stuff, you know, trying to run a shop. Sometimes you're starting off very small with a limited budget, but this stuff accumulates over time. If I get a computer in my shop that's not working, a gaming rig for example, and it's an AM4 chip, well, I bite the bullet and I go out, I shop online for a nice cheap AM4 motherboard and you know, purchase it. And just piece things together here and there. I'll recoup my money on that particular job, right? But any future AM4s that come in, I already have a paid for, known good motherboard, if all that makes sense. Now you have to have a known good video card. You don't have to have an expensive video card. This is one that doesn't require any power. It gets its power from the PCI Express slot. So a lot of times I can take out a high-end graphics card and pop in this graphics card, nice cheap graphics card, just to see if I get post, right? Just to see if I can get into the BIOS, just to test to see if there's an issue with the video card or the PCI Express slot. So I do keep around an older style. This is a 1060. I just happen to come across it with computers that come through my shop. So this is my other test video card. So those are important to have. I will say I have yet to have a crashing or non-working Threadripper gaming machine come through my shop, but it comes with the territory. If you want to do this kind of repairs and you want to boast yourself to be a repair technician, you have to properly troubleshoot everything, and I'm sure the day will come when I'll have to invest in either a Threadripper chip or a Threadripper motherboard. Power supplies, very important. Not just any power supply. Don't go out there and buy a cheap power supply for testing. You must have a quality power supply for testing clients' computers, and if I were you, the higher the wattage the better. And the higher the rating, the better. This is a gold plus, and this is a 850 watt. So far, that's doing me okay. I'm sure I'm going to have to upgrade at some point, and it is not a cheap power supply. With all the cables that's needed for testing, this guy has come in handy a lot of times because you know the most important part of a desktop computer of any sort, whether it be gaming or just a workstation, the most important part is the power supply. And many times the very first thing I will do is bypass the power supply that's in the computer and hook up my own power supply that I know is good, just to see if those issues get cleared up. But very important, a quality power supply is important for a PC repair shop. A quality CPU air cooler. Notice I said air cooler. It must be a quality one. Doesn't have to be a very expensive one. Many computers come through my shop that have overheating problems, and there could very well could be that the thermal sensor on the processor or on the motherboard is faulty. I have seen that before. Many of them that I get in here are water cooled machines, so I bypass sometimes the water cool. This is a universal air cooler, a quality one by Be Quiet. It's the one I use. This is universal for all Intel and AMD sockets at the time of this video, but this definitely will help you troubleshoot thermal problems whether you're trying to determine if do I have a overheating processor because the processor thermal sensors are bad, or is it because the pump on the water cooler is failing. Either way, I'll put this in and compare temperatures to make a determination. Mice and keyboards. Sometimes I get computers in here lined up. I've got two separate benches here in my shop. Sometimes I will have several computers on each, and instead of me having to go around and plug and unplug mice and keyboards. Laptops, I usually plug in an external keyboard and a mouse simply because I don't want to be touching the keys on people's keyboards, because, you know, I don't know what people are doing sometimes with their computers and they bring them into me, so I immediately plug in a mouse and a keyboard. I have accumulated these. This is a really cheap thing, you know, for 50 bucks will get you all of this, honestly. So real important to have USB mice and keyboards around. It's obvious why, but I have to bring this up because it is important. You will quickly find out if you're running a repair shop that you're going to have these things around to be more efficient. Laptop and desktop memory. Now I do have, and I showed you a few new modules. This is a new one. This is DDR4. I have DDR4, DDR3 RAM. I used to have a ton of DDR2s, but I have since moved on from that. This is also desktop memory, mostly DDR4. There is some DDR3 in here also. All of which I have collected over time from people who have abandoned their computers with me, so they don't want their computer anymore, what have you. So I get myself a little nice collection of these RAM sticks. Great for testing, and you can even give your customer a little bit of an upgrade too. Another great thing to have. This is a rechargeable, battery operated air duster. Got a nice bristles on the end of it to help you get the dust off. Then you have another attachment there that's just straight up for blowing. Hey, so this sure beats the conventional canned air stuff that I used to use. Started going through that pretty good, but you know, there's something else that I have that I use for blowing out computers. Not just this. A good old-fashioned shop vac. This one's been around for years in my shop. It's been through a lot. Now, I've got an air duster, right? So why in the world would I need a shop vac? Now there's no way that this little guy could have cleaned or blew out all that dust on that computer. And I get those kind of dirty computers in fairly often. So shop vac in blower mode. It'll blow it right out, man. Get it good and clean. In my opinion, a must-have. Good old-fashioned flashlight. Now, the flashlights that I use in my shop have evolved over the years, and I personally think this is one of the best ones I've ever had. It bends both directions. It has a front light so you can shine down straight. It also has big surface lights. It's all LED. This light can last up to 8 hours on one charge. And you know, and if you're completely in the dark, you can turn both of them on. Pretty cool. And it's magnetized. So why is it a big deal that it's magnetized? I can set my light up anywhere I want to. This also has wireless charging capabilities. It comes with the kit. So listen everyone, these are just a few of the items that I think are pretty important if you want to try to run a repair shop. Some of this stuff you can just pick up as you go, as you grow. Some of this stuff you're going to need right away. There are many other things that are nice to have when running a repair shop. If you're into soldering, you got rework stations, you got soldering material. Another thing that I didn't mention, you know, this stuff is very important. These, you know, thermal material, thermal paste, that's important. I could go on and on and on, but I just figured I'd share with you some of the more important tools and devices that I have that help me run my repair shop as smoothly as I can. What do you guys think? What did I miss? What kind of tools are important to you in your repair shop? Let me know down below this video in the chat. I'm Tim with Tim's Computer Repair. See you soon.